Most farmers never do the math before they start producing. They raise the animals first and then figure out the business later. That's the mistake we're going to address in this video today. So here's the problem. You cannot hit a target that you have not set yet. If you don't know the revenue that you'll need, the amount of animals that you have to raise, and the amount of customers that you're going to need, or whether your prices are even close to right, well, that's a case of more hoping instead of farming. A lot of farmers will plateau at the same number every year. And it has nothing to do with being a bad farmer or the farming practices themselves. It's mostly because a lot of farms don't do the math before they start producing. So we're going to address that today. And the first part I want to talk about is basically a framework to address this. This framework starts by one, picking a number for that season that you actually want to hit. Pick a target, pick a goal. It could be 50, 75, 100,000. And I also recommend don't try to pick a number that just sounds impressive or looks really good on paper. Try to pick a number that for you would actually change something in your life. You have more money to buy something you need, or it'll allow you to cut back on your full-time job so that then you can farm part-time and work part-time. So think about a number that would actually change your situation, but that's realistic. And then this is something that a lot of farms just don't do for whatever reason, is you just work it backwards. Start with that number, and now we need to figure out, okay, what do I need to raise? What do I need to do to get to that number? What are we selling and at what price? How many of what we're selling do we need? If we're talking specific products, how many animals is that going to be? If we're talking about vegetables, how many heads of lettuce? How many pounds of tomatoes? And then when you're working those numbers, then you have to start thinking about too, can the land support the amount of animals or space for a garden, the space that you need to achieve those numbers? Now, before we do these numbers, I need to make one thing clear. When I mention revenue, revenue is the total amount of money coming in. It does not take into account what you spent to get that money. It doesn't account for cost. It doesn't account for labor. So the revenue is just purely the overall amount that's coming in. Then there's profit. When we talk about profit, that's the amount of money, that revenue that's come in, minus the amount you had to spend to achieve that revenue. So your cost of feed, if you had to pay someone, you should be counting yourself as labor. Essentially, profit is what's left over after your cost. They're very different numbers, so that's why I just wanted to clarify that before we continue. So when we're thinking about the cost that's going to be subtracted from that revenue, you have to think about minerals, processing, feed cost, insurance, utilities, whether that be gas, electricity, water, and then even marketing. You know, if you're running paid ads on Facebook, Google, you're paying a service, you have a website, those are all real cost. And all of that has to come out before you see $1 of profit. So when I'm talking about revenue, just understand that your take home, what you're actually making as profit, is going to be a lot less than that revenue number. How much less really depends on how tight your operation is, how efficient you are, and we're going to talk a lot about that once we get to Module 10. But for right now, I just want you to think of what's coming in and what it's costing you to produce it. And I'll go ahead and preface, I'm probably leaving a few things out here. I've done a few videos in the past on this stuff, and I get a lot in the comments, hey, you didn't count this, you didn't include that, and totally, you're right. There's a lot of things I'm probably not naming, but for every farm too, there's different circumstances. It's just, I can't name everything. What it's really important is that you as a farmer keep up with your numbers, keep up with what you're spending and what's going out, so that you're not just getting an idea, you have the exact amount it's costing you to do that enterprise. So let's do an example of where this really helps. Let's say you want to achieve $75,000 in revenue a year. So $75,000 coming into the farm. Not thinking about what we're spending yet, just thinking about what we need to get there. Let's say you're doing cattle. And let's just, to keep the numbers even, let's say you're selling them for $5 a pound hanging weight, and you've got roughly a 500-pound carcass. Now, I know that's way low on the price, and that's way low on the cart. Well, not way low, but it's smaller framed cattle. But I just want to keep the numbers somewhat even. So $5 a pound, 500-pound carcass, that means you're going to bring in $2,500 per animal. Now again, this is going to vary. I know these numbers are a little bit off, but I just want them to be even numbers, so it's just easy to understand the concept. So thinking at about $2,500 a head, that means I'm going to need to produce roughly 30 animals that year to hit my goal of $75,000. 30 head of cattle a year means I'm going to need at least 30 customers Probably more than that. Obviously, if I'm selling shares and hanging weight, that's one thing. If I'm selling it retail, I'm probably selling it at a higher price because they're not getting the bulk discount. But then I'm probably going to need 50 to 60 customers because some customers may buy one time, a couple pieces. You may have some repeat customers. And then I also have to think, okay, I already know I want to do cattle on my farm. Do I have the means of raising 30 head of cattle? Do I have a trailer to haul the livestock, or am I going to pay someone? Do I have the land just to support that? Do I have enough room to rotate or put in your pastures 30 head of cattle? If you're doing a breeding operation, you've already got heifers and cows that you're not processing because they're having babies, and then they're having babies on top of that, and then a lot of their babies are smaller, they can't be processed yet, so you have a number of head of cattle already if you're in that type of operation before you even get to the animals that may be 2 or 3 years old and ready to go to the processor. So you're talking about having to have room for 90 head. That's, again, if you're doing stockers, you wouldn't have that problem. You're not really dealing with the cow-calf pairs, so you would just be bringing in those stockers, growing them out, and taking them in. But you also need to think with cattle too, if you're bringing them in at 6 months to a year, they may not be ready that next year. You may have to have them on farm for almost 2 years before you can get them to weight, especially if you're doing just grass-fed only. So this is what I'm talking about, kind of working it backwards. By doing that, we have a clear picture now. Okay, I want to hit 75,000. I need 30 head of cattle this year. So then how am I going to do that? Now, a lot of you aren't just doing cattle. Let's say we're also doing pigs and we're also doing chickens for meat and eggs. Now you've got 4 enterprises: eggs, meat birds, pigs, and cattle. And we're still trying to make 75,000. Well, obviously that's going to be way less head of cattle now that I have to produce because, on 2 or 3 acres over here, I've got 10 pigs. So we have to figure out, okay, 10 pigs processed, what's that going to bring in? I can subtract that number from the 75,000, and then I know what I need from my cattle and my chickens. And you can do this with all of them. And this is why I'm a really big proponent in knowing your numbers. I've done a couple videos where I talk about, is raising 100 chickens worth it? The profit, how much did we make on pigs? And a big part of that is including labor, because when you really go to compare these operations, knowing how much that labor time is going to make a big difference. If you're making, just roughly, you're making 50,000 on eggs, but it's taking you 40 hours a week to do that because you got to wash eggs and do all that, where you're making 25,000 on cattle, but it's taking you 2 hours a week, you kind of got to think about, okay, yes, I'm making more with eggs, but I'm also working a ton more. What if I put more of that time into cattle or something else? Could I be making more per hour? So these things matter a lot. And down below, I've actually got some links. I have created a pastured poultry calculator that essentially takes in all your costs, and you put in your prices you're going to sell, and it'll tell you what your margin is, how much profit, how much revenue you're making, and then how much profit from that you're keeping. There's also a calculator down below for beef and pork shares that we use on our farm. We do our shares a little different. Instead of using hanging weights, we take the animals in, get them processed, bring them back to the farm, and then we put the shares together manually based on the size of a small framed animal. This way the customer knows what they're getting up front. They don't have to deal with cut sheets, and I can give them an exact price, and I can give them an exact amount of cuts and what they're getting. Simplifies the whole process, and again, when you can remove friction for the customer and make it easier for them, you're going to have more customers buying. So there's a spreadsheet for that down below as well, and it's the exact one we use on this farm. But I would encourage you to make your own spreadsheet too. Keep up with what you're spending on your pigs, keep up with what you're spending on if you're doing turkeys, if you're doing a garden, keep up with how much seed amendments that you need for the soil, tools if you're having to invest in that stuff, labor. And then you've got wash station stuff, and then you've got packing stuff and bags. And so keep up with everything because you can make your own spreadsheets. It's really not hard, and these things are gold. These will really tell you the real story of what's going out and what's coming in. But again, those couple spreadsheets are below if you want to check them out. So working backwards, I know it sounds super simple, like duh, but it's something that a lot of farms don't do. They just start producing, making as much as they can and selling, and sometimes having these targets will help you more pinpoint on things you can do, efficiencies you can find, enterprises that might be more profitable for you so that you're spending less time with enterprises that aren't as profitable. Not only that, but you have a clear plan to hit your goals. Here at Longbottom Farm, something we've been dealing with and working backwards has really helped is cattle. When we first started 10 years ago, I was getting a head of cattle stockers for $500 a head. And we would bring them in, grow them out, and the margins were really good. And now, I'm sure a lot of you know, you're lucky if you can find 1,500, but you're looking at 1,500 to 2,000 a head. So those numbers have changed dramatically. And when I work those numbers back, I'm not now just looking at 500 cost per cattle, I'm looking at $1,500 to $2,000 cost per cattle. So there's been some shifting of us from going from as much cattle. We've actually been sold out of beef for a bit because we don't have as many cattle to take in because we haven't been buying the stockers the last couple years. And we've been doing pastured poultry, we've been doing turkey seasonally, of course we have eggs, and then working with pigs. We've also had to adjust our prices on beef. Again, that's another thing you really have to stay on top of. Your cost and your inputs are always changing. And because of that, your prices that you charge need to change. If you set your prices like 2 years ago and you haven't looked at them, then you're probably losing a lot of ground right there without even realizing it. In the next module, we're actually going to talk about pricing. That's what that whole module is going to be about. So, something for you to try this week. Come up with a number, and I'm not talking about something super dramatic, but I am talking about something that would be meaningful to you. Something that you would see a change in your farm, in your family, something that would make a difference in your life and would make the farm financially something to look at, like, yeah, this could work. Do the basic math for that. How many animals are you going to need? How much space are you going to need if you're doing a garden? How many customers are you going to need, whether you're doing animals or garden or honey or bread or whatever you're doing? And then once you get that number, play around a little bit with the price. Okay, what prices do I need to hit that number? You know, you want this to be real. You want it to be something that's actually going to give you essentially a roadmap of, okay, I now know what I need to do to hit the numbers I need to hit. So I hope you found this helpful. And if you are already selling and finding that you're having to manage orders manually by DMs or text, fill out the 5-minute questionnaire at Homegrown Hosting. There's a link below. I'll send you a custom plan within 24 hours that'll get your farm online and selling products while you're working or sleeping. Next week, Module 6, we're going to talk about pricing. So stay tuned for that. Again, thanks for watching. Leave comments below. If you have questions, reach out, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.